Hello, I would like to welcome you to today's training on virtual visits. I am Kim Kelley and I am the MSPCC KidsNet Director for the Southern Region. I also fostered for over 10 years and adopted 3 children from DCF. I understand the challenges surrounding virtual visits. We at MSPCC wanted to provide this training tonight because we have heard from many of you that you are uncomfortable doing the video visits or the visits do not go well. In this training, I will talk about some DCF policy, the importance of visits, the hesitancies people have in regards to visits, and some tips on how to make them more successful. Before we go over how to make the visit successful, I want to take a few minutes to discuss the laws and regulations regarding DCF visits. DCF is required by law to allow biological parents to visit with their children. However, there is no law specifically stating how often these visits must occur. The law or policy is that DCF must make reasonable efforts to make sure visits happen. They must be regular and frequent, and DCF gets to choose where the visits will be held. Obviously, with the pandemic, we are now experiencing unprecedented times. As we navigate this time, DCF is also working hard
opportunity to maintain bonds with their children. So many times when we remove children and place them in an out-of-home setting, it's hard for families to stay connected and to have that opportunity to see their children so they can build and grow and foster those bonds. So it's important that they have that opportunity to do that. It's also an opportunity for us as an agency to help that family demonstrate their improved parenting skills, because we need to see that. If we're going to reunify children with families, it's important that we have the opportunity to observe those children and observe the families working together in a visitation setting where we can be sure that families are demonstrating the skills that they've learned. The most important message that we can share with other professionals is that visitation is a shared commitment by everyone involved. And that goes beyond just foster parents, resource parents, biological parents in our agency. It also involves guardian ad litems. It involves other professionals such as mental health in our community, and also judges. Every one of these players needs to be involved in the decision-making, involved in the feedback process, and make a commitment to be sure that visitation is the best that it can be. If the Child Welfare Agency knows that shorter, more frequent visits are important for infants, but we don't relate that message to a judge to help structure the court order, we're not going to have a good outcome for families. So it's important that everyone is working together. We may be the agency in charge of visitation, but it's not our sole responsibility. And it's up to us to invite other people to the table so is working toward reunification. If we're failing to keep the goal of reunification in mind as we're working with families, we're moving toward termination, because families are either moving forward or they're moving backwards. Very seldom are families just static. Everything we do, every effort that we make must be poured into guiding that family toward the ultimate goal of reunification. That includes any counseling services, any involvement that we have with other agencies, coaching families, advocating for families, building relationships. Even the locations and frequency of our visits all needs to be guided toward that ultimate goal of reunification. Because if we take our eye off the ball of reunification, we're going to find ourselves stuck in cases for long periods of time while children are languishing in foster care. And that's not the goal of any agency.
One of the common things I hear from foster parents is they don't want to facilitate a visit. Often there may be several reasons for this, including worrying about safety and privacy, feeling resentful or like this is a burden, and worrying about how the child will behave and respond to the visit. I totally understand these feelings. When I fostered, there were cases that I would have shared some of these feelings on as well. So I want you to be honest about your feelings. Ask yourself why you have strong feelings against facilitating a visit. Do you feel resentful? Do you feel like you're doing the social worker's job if you are the one that is taking the primary role of facilitating that virtual visit? Do you feel anger towards the biological parents? Any of these feelings that you might have, I would encourage you to discuss your feelings with your family resource worker, your family resource liaison or FRL, or KidsNet director. Um, so let's explore a little bit of science. Many of us don't like the way we look or might be worried about how our house looks. So research shows that 59% of people feel more self-conscious on camera than they do in real life. And 39% don't like being on camera at all. One study even had people confess that they've made up excuses like bad Wi Fi and fake appointments to avoid calls. I'm going to be honest, I did that just the other day. I opted to have just audio on during a meeting instead of video. So, this is termed video aversion or video anxiety. So, there are several ways to help you with this. You can shut off the ability to see yourself on your computer screen so that you're not constantly looking at yourself. There are ways to make yourself look better on camera. Use of correct lighting. Try to use natural lighting or put lighting in front of you instead of behind you. If you wear makeup, put on a bit more. Toss on a t-shirt in your favorite color. Be sure to sit up straight and tip your head slightly forward. Put the camera at eye level or just above so it mimics talking in real life. We've probably all seen people that have held the camera or the phone or the computer down low, and it's almost like we can look right up their nose. Um, and so all of those other things are ways that you can help yourself to feel better. Um, Setting up an area where there's a wall behind you. There's many great videos on YouTube as to how to look better on a virtual call, and I would encourage you um, to watch those if this is something that concerns you. I recently painted my bedroom where my office is. I feel much better with my pretty blue walls behind me than I did with dirty, white, unpainted walls. I am in no means suggesting you need to dress like a movie star or paint an entire room. Um, but being in an outfit that you feel comfortable in and finding a place where you feel more comfortable in your home doing the visits can really take. Research has actually shown that the experience of video calls does not carry over any of the spatial cues we experience in the physical world. So, if you think about a typical meeting, what it's like in a typical meeting, you're taking in people's body language, you're looking at um, what's going on around people, you're seeing eye contact with different people. If we think about the different systems that we use, such as Zoom, um, some call systems move the videos to highlight and enlarge the speaker. So that can be very nice to see who's talking, but it's very disorienting for our brain. Imagine if you were in a physical meeting where anytime a new person speaks, they're teleported to the front of the room and grow 100% taller. And then when the next person speaks, the first person's teleported back to their seat, and the next person is teleported up to being 100% taller as well. So to make it even worse, imagine seeing people around the room moving their mouths, but hearing all of their voices coming from a single speaker on the wall. Conversations would be impossible to follow. So this messes with our minds and makes virtual calls feel even more exhausting for all involved. And if we think about just a typical phone call, the only sense that we're using is our ears. Whereas when we're doing the video conferencing, our brain is being tricked because we are feeling like we're in a typical meeting, but we're not getting those typical sensory cues that we would in a meeting. So I want you to consider the child. Um, as we think about these visits, we really want to take into consideration what the kids have been through. They have lost contact with it during this pandemic and this shutdown. They've lost contact with their friends, possibly their neighbors, your extended families during this pandemic. Foster children who may have come into care shortly before the pandemic began or during the pandemic are also dealing with the recent feelings of loss and abandonment. Visits with biological parents can help children to maintain their bond with their parents. Foster children who have been in care for a while may have been triggered by the feelings of abandonment and loss that the pandemic has brought on, including younger children who were pre-verbal. So if you think about what you are experiencing during the shutdown and how you might be feeling some anxiety surrounding not seeing your friends, think about what the kids might be feeling when they already have attachment and trauma related issues. So, what are the benefits? The benefits of doing these video calls is you are helping to keep the case on track. Cases that are still on the reunification track can keep the bond strong between biological parents and children. In cases that we're moving close to reunification, it's in the child's best interest to keep the bond strong. It is also common that the more compassion and empathy that foster parents show to biological families, the easier it is on the children. In cases where parents may not be in compliance with their action plan, any missed calls or negative behavior on the part of the biological parent can be reported back to the social worker and possibly strengthen the need for the case to move to the adoption track. One of the things I've heard from foster parents is they don't understand the need for video visits if the goal is um, termination of parental rights and adoption. So first, let me say that there have been times a case is on track for TPR or adoption, and the goal ends up changing back to reunification. In these cases, keeping that bond strong would only help the child in the long run. I would also recommend considering how much better a child that was adopted would feel to know that even during a pandemic, their first family continued to visit them. Boundaries are very important. We hear a lot about boundaries quite a bit. And so I know that many of you probably feel that the rules need to be established by the social worker, and the social worker should be facilitating these visits. And while that is true, um, gentle reminders can go a long way. So I want you to remember that this is new for everyone, and we want to all work together as a team. So if you are doing virtual visits and the social worker is not on the call, I would allow time at the beginning of the visit to quickly go over the rules. This can be as easy as saying, hey, Lisa, the social worker, asked that I mention that we're not allowed to discuss the case. If the child tires of the call, we should end it, and I will be available to chat at the end about how Tommy is doing. But this is your time to interact with him, so be sure to have fun. Um, and you want to make sure that whatever those boundaries and those rules have been that you discussed with the social worker, that those are happening during the virtual visits. And if they're not, this is when you really want to make sure that you are documenting this and letting the social worker know. So a little preparation can go a long way. Um, Missing their parents. You're also the one that will need to deal with a child who will be upset that they can't hug and kiss their mom or dad through a computer, or if a child will not stay near a computer. If the visit goes well, chances are your child will be in a better place emotionally. They will know they are loved by their biological parent, and it will also make the visit easier on you. I like to remember the saying that proper planning prevents poor performance. I'm going to be honest here. I know some of you might be thinking that you don't want to help these parents have a successful visit. You may feel like because they lost their children in the first place, they don't deserve the help, or they should be the ones planning things. Instead of helping to make it fun for the child. This is one of those times when we need to put our animosity away and think of how we can make this successful for everyone. One of the reasons for not wanting to do video visits is safety and privacy. If using FaceTime, you will need to give out your phone number, but other video programs allow you to not have to do this. Zoom and Google Hangouts allow you to use just email and not phone numbers, so you do not have to give out your number if you want to keep it private. When you're going to do a virtual call, think about what you want your background to look like. Is there an area of the house where you can set up a corner or set up a wall as a background? This way, you will not feel like biological parents can see your house and will make you feel more comfortable. You also don't have to worry about any judgments if you have dirty dishes in your sink. Some video conferencing allows for you to put a fake background up. Take some time to play with the system that you're going to be using. You can also ask the social worker to participate in the video visits if you do not feel comfortable with being alone with bio parents. Um, your social workers should be doing this anyway, and if they're not, you can always go up the chain of command, call the supervisor, let them know that the social worker has not been involved in these visits and you really are not comfortable with having to be the one that's facilitating them. Um, so you can definitely give your family resource worker a call as well. Um, the social worker should be willing to hear and alleviate any concerns that you might have about being involved with the parents. Just be aware that you might need to be flexible on the scheduling in order to coordinate with the social worker because they are supervising multiple virtual visits. You also would want to set up boundaries ahead of time with that social worker, as we spoke about a couple slides back, and the biological parent. And I would recommend regularly discussing with the worker whether or not these boundaries need to be adjusted. And if you haven't done that already, there's still time to do that. I had spoken to one foster parent who the biological parents were at the grocery store every time that they had a visit, and the parents were very distracted and not fully engaged in that call. And so if things like that are happening, you can always talk to the child's worker and let them know what is going on as far as things, the different boundaries that are going on. So if we look at infant, toddler, and preschooler visits, um, you want to ask the worker if it's possible to, especially if we look at infants and toddlers, to exchange videos. They may let you do that in lieu of live virtual visits. There's also some great apps for video sharing, such as Marco Polo, that you can inquire about. And those you actually exchange videos back and forth. And you can have a full conversation with that. They're just not live. Um, if you are going to do live virtual visits, try to schedule a call for lunch or snack time. Even bottle feeding a baby with the phone on can be a nice bonding experience for mom and child. You can buckle the toddler or preschooler into a high chair and let them talk to mom or dad while they eat. Encourage the parent to do things such as peekaboo or read a book while the child is eating. A parent and preschooler could both play with Play-Doh, a ball or crayons. The parent can ask the child, say, hey, why don't you make a ball with your Play-Doh? Why don't you make a snake? Can you write a line or a circle? Different things like that. You want to remember that children at this age like to exhibit control over their surroundings. Giving them choices like, do you want to play peekaboo or do you want to read a book? Do you want to play with Play-Doh first and blocks second, or blocks first and Play-Doh second? Do you want an apple or an orange? Having special visit-only toys can also help a toddler or preschooler look forward to the visits. When you're talking to the social worker or the parents about the visits, you want to keep in mind the age of the child. Child development experts tend to say that a typical child's attention span is 3 to 5 minutes per each year of a child's age. So a 5-year-old neurotypical child's attention span is 15 to 25 minutes. I know some of you probably just muttered to yourself, yeah, right, Kim. My 5-year-old can't pay attention for more than 30 seconds. So remember, this is for a neurotypical child. You know your foster child best, so you want to really determine what you think is a reasonable amount of time for them to sit at the computer and engage with a parent. This age can be really hard for kids to do that for an extended period of time. So when we look at school age visits, we're looking at children that are aged 5 to 12, and these visits can go longer. However, still you want to think about your individual child and what their attention span is. Schedule the call when you know your child will be at their best. This is not the time to see if mom or dad is capable of settling down a tired or angry or hangry child. Make a plan with the parent ahead of time as to what they're going to do for the visit so that you can have materials ready. Come up with a list ahead of time of what your foster child, of what they would like to talk about, and then you can prompt them if needed. Baking or cooking together is one great idea. Both biological parents and the foster child could make cupcakes and see who can decorate the best or who can make the best looking pizza. Don't be afraid to get creative. Having a good partnership will help make these visits successful for the kids. Many board games can be adapted to work online. As you can see from the picture, the Connect 4 game was modified. And so what the child would do is they would drop their chip into whatever color they wanted, and then the parent would say, okay, you can drop my chip into the pink, the blue, the purple, whatever color they wanted to do as well. Games like Battleship, if the foster parent and the the foster family and the biological parents both have them, you can play Battleship. And each person would have their little tray of ships. Headbands is another great one. Guess Who? That's another great one. Pictionary, Hangman. There's also online games that can be great for virtual visits. Some suggestions would be Clue and Monopoly. Those have a small fee. Mario Kart, Uno, Wheel of Fortune, Heads Up. All of those are different games that could be played together. So I'm going to show you a quick video that has a bunch of great suggestions for different games. It's a little bit, it does get a little bit long, but I do want you to see it because it has some great suggestions. So I'm going to put that on now. Oops. Some technical difficulties. Let's see if that works. There we go.
Hello friends, in today's video I have 20 of the top Zoom games for families. So if you are looking to connect with your loved ones online, then this is the video for you. If we are meeting for the first time, hi, my name is Sean. Welcome on this channel. I am passionate about bringing families closer together through fun and games. I know that times are difficult for all of us right now, and this time doesn't have to be boring. I would also love for you to consider subscribing to this channel if you too want to grow closer to your friends and family, especially during this difficult time. All right, let's jump into today's video. Here we go.
It's Kay!
Game number one is called Zoomed In. You are going to go ahead and pick some pictures of some animals, save them to your computer. You're going to screen share through Zoom. Yes, Zoom will let you screen share. Don't show the full picture right away. Go ahead and zoom in on the corner of the object of the picture and see if the other players can guess what the picture is. The longer it takes them to guess, the further you zoom the picture out until somebody has guessed it correctly. I did forget to tell you that these 20 ideas are great for families because there are options for families with younger children. There are options for families with grandparents. These games are geared for a span of age groups, so you'll need to pick the games that best suit the ages of the players on your Zoom call. All right, game number two. Game number two is Inside Scavenger Hunt. Now, this is one of the easier games to play. So you will name an object that is commonly found in the house. So say a box of cookies. All the players will go and find a box of cookies, and whoever returns back with their cookies first is the winner of that round. So then you can have like a whole list of 20 or 30 objects that your friends and your family have to go and find, and that is how you play an indoor scavenger hunt. I will leave a link to a Pinterest post of mine that gives you a short list of objects that you can use for this game. Game number three is Animal Charades. Each player will take turns picking an animal inside their head and then act out that animal without making any noises, and see which of the other players guesses the animal correctly. So it's regular normal charades played online. Game number four is called What's That Sound? You can use sounds off of your computer, off of your phone, off of stuff that you found around your house, but make a funny sound where people cannot see the object. And then the players will guess, and whoever guesses the sound correctly wins the game. Game number five is called Storyteller. You're going to mute all the players except for yourself. You're going to begin with a short sentence, the beginning of the story, and then you will unmute the other players and they will take turns adding a sentence to that story until all the players have had a chance to say part of the story. So you're making a story together. Game number six is called Silly Faces. This one is great for younger children. So go ahead and say, all right, we're all going to make a silly face, and then you take a screenshot of everybody making that silly face. Everybody make a silly face with your tongue sticking out. Everybody make a silly face, touching your finger to your nose, with your eyes wide open. Everybody show how far you can stick out your tongue. Kissy face. Who can lick their elbow? Game number seven is the Singing Whisper Challenge. I saw this on The Tonight Show. I didn't actually click on the video, but it sounded like a great idea. So to play the Singing Whisper Challenge, you will mute the person that is starting off the game, the it person. You will mute them, and they will pick a song, and they have to sing that song and dance to that song, and everybody else has to guess. Game number eight is called Draw It. Each player takes a turn picking an animal and drawing it, and whoever guesses before they finish the completed project, the completed work of art, is the winner. Game number nine is called I Spy. Go ahead and designate one person as it. That person will look through the backgrounds of all the other players and say, hey, I spy something red. They could name a color, or I spy a circle. They could name a shape. All the other players have to guess, and each time nobody guesses the object that they spy correctly, then you add on a new clue or a new hint to help the team to come up with what they have spied. Game number 10 is Quarantine Would You Rather. I played this on a live stream a couple weeks ago. I will link that right up here in the cards for you to watch. It has lots of questions on how to play Would You Rather. So go check that out. Go watch the video after this. Game number 11 is Two Truths and a Lie. Each player will tell two true things about themselves and one lie. So you'll take turns, and all the other players, they have to guess which one is the lie. Game number 12 is called Read My Lips. One player texts another player a phrase. That player then says the phrase to the group without making a sound. The other players have to guess that phrase. Game number 13 is great for preschoolers. You can play Simon Says. Simon Says. Everybody loves old school Simon Says. Simon says, touch your head. Simon says, touch your nose, touch your ears. Oops, Simon did not say, touch your ears, you're out. That's how you play Simon Says. Game Game number 14 is rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, you can play rock, paper, scissors online. I know. Who would have thought? It's real easy. You can do this. Just gotta be visual. Rock, paper, scissors, classic game. Game number 15 is the ABC game. I'm going on a beach trip and I'm taking an apple. And the next player has to come up with something else that starts with B. So they say, I'm going on a beach trip, I'm taking an apple and a beach blanket. And then you go through the whole alphabet until someone cannot come up with an object to name with the letter in the alphabet, and then they are out. Game number 16 is a memory game. You're gonna need a cookie sheet for this and your magnets off your refrigerator. Go get those. Go get those right now. Put your magnets, they will stick right onto that cookie sheet. Give all the players 30 seconds to look at your magnet and then take one away. And players have to guess which magnet is missing. What did it look like? I wonder, can we remember what was actually on this cookie sheet? On this cookie sheet? On this cookie sheet. Game number 17, Mad Libs. I'll leave a link in the description box down below of a free site, not my own, somebody else's, of some Mad Lib stories, and just fill out a Mad Lib story together. Number 19 is a talent show. But don't do any prep. I mean, you could. You could do a talent show and have everybody prepare. I think, weren't there some celebrities that recently did this? Or you could do a talent show on the spot, which leads to some very interesting talents when people have to come up with a talent on the spot. I mean, like, one of my talents is I can bend my thumb behind my finger. Weird, I know, but that's one of my talents. What is one of your talents? And game number 20, could you believe it? We're at the end of this video. I really hope that I have lifted your spirits through this video and given you guys some great ideas to have fun with your friends and family. Even though you can't see them in person, this world is going to get better. This virus will end. It will not last forever. We can save lives by staying home and playing with our friends and family online through an app such as Zoom. This isn't sponsored. They don't even know I'm doing this video. All right. Game number 20. Name that emoji. Why did I just sing it? That was weird. Feeling sassy. Name that emoji. Preload some emojis onto your computer so that you can screen share them, and everybody has to caption that emoji. Put up some well-known emojis that everybody knows, you know, laughing, crying face, tears pouring down, heart emoji, and then give them some unusual ones like this one here or this one. What are those? I don't know. Let me know in the description box down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! If you have some...
I hope you enjoyed that. I know there was lots of silly kind of games in there that could be fun. So then we move on to how to manage teen calls. So teen calls can be a little tricky. As we all know, teens want their space. And I would be sure to talk to the ongoing worker about how closely the call must be supervised. Encourage the teen to play some of the games, cook, bake, etc., the different ideas that we had for the school age. But if they just want to talk, that's okay too. Be sure to respect their physical space while being at a safe distance to monitor the call. Most teens will not want you to sit directly next to them while they're talking. And remember, with all of these calls, to document. If mom and dad are continuously late, even though they know how to log on, or they miss a visit, if they are not engaging with their child, if there is a lot of yelling between the parents or talking about inappropriate things, all of this should be reported to the social worker if the social worker is not on the call. It's also important to remember that you are all mandated reporters. So if there are other children in the home and you see something concerning, such as drug paraphernalia, filthy living conditions, etc., you will need to file a 51A. If there is something concerning that you see or hear during a virtual visit, be sure to email your family resource worker and the ongoing worker. We all know that siblings can bring a lot of joy to each other, but it can also bring a unique set of challenges. So when you think about siblings, we have either siblings in the same foster home or siblings in different foster homes. And so when you're looking at virtual visits, consider having part of the visit be for one child and part of the visit be for another child. This may make things easier to manage. Multiple children of similar ages can also do similar things together, such as some of those ideas that were on that video that I just showed you a little bit earlier. So play around with it, practice, see what works best for your family, what works best for the kids. If the kids are in different foster homes, ask the worker if the children can have virtual visits or utilize social media to communicate with each other. Video and online games can be a great way for children to play together while being able to still communicate with one another. And before I go on to doing a home visit with a social worker, I wanted to address what happens if the social worker is on the call with you and you realize that the bio parents are starting to be inappropriate. Many of the different web-based virtual meeting programs like Zoom or Google Hangouts have a chat feature. So I would recommend chatting just privately with the social worker. Or if you have the social worker's cell phone number, you can be texting them while the visit's going on. And if something starts to come up, you could say, okay, I don't think that that was appropriate what mom just said. And you can have a conversation with the social worker if they're not speaking up during a visit. So then we get into doing a home visit with a social worker. Monthly home visits with an ongoing worker still required virtually. And then depending on how long you've been a foster parent would depend on whether or not you're having monthly or bi-monthly visits with your family resource worker. I would recommend following the same guidelines that we talked about earlier, things like good lighting, having a wall as a background. Social workers are very understanding that we're all being challenged by working from home, working outside the home while we're homeschooling kids, dealing with dysregulated kids for longer periods of time, not getting a break, and so forth. So if you're worried about things like the kitchen being messy, sit at the kitchen table with a wall behind you. That's going to make you feel better. If you didn't get to shower that day, stick your hair in a ponytail or stick on a baseball cap, but please do not stress. Um, Also see if your visits with the ongoing and family resource worker can be combined so that you only have to do it once a month instead of twice a month. I remember when I first started fostering, I used to go crazy cleaning my house. Don't go crazy right now. Don't add more stress for yourself. We are, even social workers are having a challenging time working remotely with their own kids from home. So if you do need some help with things such as using WIC, get see the children once a month. So be sure to have the children awake and ready for the virtual visit with the social worker. Um, and in all with all of that, um, I just want to touch on whether or not you're taking care of you. There is a lot going on in our country right now between the pandemic, um, the Black Lives Matter movement. And so it's really important for you to make sure that you are doing something for yourself. Please feel free to reach out to your family resource worker or your FRL. If you're not familiar with what an FRL is, each area office has what's called a family resource liaison, and that's an experienced foster parent that it works for MSPCC, not DCF, and they're there as a support for you. And so you can contact them and they can be a source of support for you. Your KidsNet director, they oversee the FRLs. That is also someone that's a source of support for you if you need it. Respite is still available if you are okay with the child going to another home, and babysitting is also available. So if you need any of those services, please feel free to contact mspcc.org/kidsnet. You can go on right onto our website and you'll find the contact information for all of us there. And I would like to thank all of the foster parents who contributed different ideas and suggestions to this training. If you do have any questions about this training, feel free to, like I said, reach out to one of the KidsNet directors, and they can answer any questions that you might have about doing virtual visits. I thank you all for your time, and I hope that you enjoyed this training.